There's a reason why you feel like you're doing everything right, yet still can't fully reach her. A reason why she pulls away just when you think you're getting close. It's not because she's complicated, it's because she's careful. You see, most men chase her actions but never pause to understand her silence. They see her beauty but miss her burden. Today, I'm not here to expose her as a mystery to solve. I'm here to help you see the unseen, feel what she won't say, and finally understand what she's been hiding. Not from you, but for the man who's willing to look deeper. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and leaders, I want to bring you into a realm most men have rarely been taught to enter. The realm of a woman's inner world. Not her body, not her looks, not her behavior, but her psychology. Because until you understand how she thinks, you'll always be reacting to what she does. You see, we were never created just to coexist. We were created to connect. But connection without understanding is confusion dressed in emotions. And many men today are trying to lead without listening, trying to love without learning, and trying to pursue without purpose. There are things, deep things, that a woman will never say out loud. Not because she's manipulative, not because she's secretive, but because she's wired for discernment. She hides things, not always from deception, but often from protection. Protection of her own heart, her own hope, her own history. And today I want to expose, not her, but the unseen truth she carries. 7 hidden things she won't tell you unless you become the kind of man she can reveal them to. My brothers, you were never called to dominate a woman. You were called to discern her, to lead with clarity, to protect with wisdom, to love with intention. And the more you grow in understanding, the more she will reveal what no eye has seen and no ear has heard. The things she hides are not to confuse you. They're to challenge you, to rise, to grow, to become. Because when a man becomes who he was designed to be, she will naturally become who she was destined to be. And that, my friend, is not just relationship, that is kingdom alignment. She hides her desire to be led by strength, wrapped in tenderness. This is not something she'll announce or even casually mention. It's a longing deeply rooted in the structure of her soul, the architecture of her emotional design. She craves leadership, not domination. She desires guidance, not dictatorship. What she truly wants is to feel safe enough to rest, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, and mentally. Many women have been forced to lead in spaces where men refuse to rise. They have stepped into roles out of necessity, not preference. So, when a man finally shows up with purpose in his eyes and peace in his tone, she notices. She may not say it, but her spirit begins to lean in. She wants to be led by a man who knows where he's going, not just what he wants. Because too many men have pursued her body without understanding her mind, admired her form without inquiring about her future. So she's learned to withhold this desire, to protect herself from another cycle of disappointment. She'll never tell you that she's watching how you make decisions, how you treat people, how you speak under pressure, but she is. Every move you make is being measured, not by suspicion, but by discernment. She's looking for a rhythm she can trust, a direction she can follow, a man she can believe in. Strength alone is not enough. Many men have strength, but lack sensitivity. And a woman's spirit cannot rest under cold control. She needs strength that listens, strength that feels, strength that knows when to speak and when to stay silent. She wants to feel like she can collapse into your arms without being judged. She wants to know that your confidence is not a mask for insecurity. She's been around bravado before. She's seen the kind of strength that flexes in public but fails in private. She's not impressed with that anymore. She's looking for something real, and real strength has nothing to prove. She won't ask you directly if you have a vision, but she'll ask questions that test whether you have direction. She wants to know, without asking, if you're anchored, if your purpose is bigger than your pleasures, if you can delay gratification for the sake of growth, if you can hold the weight of responsibility without making her feel like a burden. She's looking for a man who doesn't just talk leadership, but walks it in everyday choices. Leadership in the way you handle your finances, leadership in the way you handle failure, leadership in how you carry your faith. The reason she hides this desire is because in the past, expressing it led to pain. There were times she hoped a man would lead her, only to realize he was lost himself. Times she submitted her trust, only to be taken for granted. So now she wears her independence like armor. But underneath, it is a quiet prayer. Let him be strong enough to lead me, but tender enough to understand me. She's not looking to be controlled, she wants to be covered. Covered in wisdom, in vision, in peace. Covered not by what you drive or what you earn, but by what you carry on the inside. She's looking for the kind of strength that makes her feel secure, not silenced. The kind of presence that allows her to relax without fear of judgment. The kind of man whose authority is born from humility, not ego. And until she sees that, she'll continue to hide this desire, locking it away behind polite smiles and rehearsed independence. She hides her broken trust behind confidence. On the surface, she seems composed, sharp, maybe even intimidating to some. She walks with purpose, speaks with clarity, and keeps her emotions close to the chest. But what you see is not the full story. What you see is the strength she had to build in the aftermath of betrayal. You see the walls she had to raise when her vulnerability was met with carelessness. Behind her composed demeanor is a woman who once gave her heart fully, only to have it mishandled. She's learned that expressing hurt can sometimes invite more hurt. So now, instead of letting you see the wound, she shows you the armor. That armor looks like independence. It looks like, I'm fine and I don't need anyone. It looks like high standards and calculated boundaries. And while those things might be true to some degree, they're often protecting something more tender: disappointment. Somewhere in her story, trust was broken, and not just by one person. Sometimes it was in childhood, other times in past relationships, but always at a moment when she believed she was safe. Now, she keeps her expectations hidden because the fewer expectations she shows, the less vulnerable she becomes. She's not trying to manipulate you with silence. She's not withholding because she wants to play games. She's withholding because her soul remembers what it felt like to be open and exposed, only to be abandoned or misunderstood. That memory has shaped her reactions, her tone, her level of availability. And if you're not careful, you'll mistake her guardedness for arrogance. But arrogance is loud and proud. Her confidence is quiet, deliberate, and deeply protective. It's the result of surviving seasons where no one protected her but herself. You may never hear her say it directly, but she wants to trust again. She wants to open up. She wants to let someone in who won't use her secrets as weapons. But before she gives you her trust, she's watching how you handle truth. She listens to how you talk about other women, how you treat people who can't give you anything, how you respond to pressure. She needs to know you're not just consistent in peace, but also in storms. Because broken trust doesn't heal in an instant. It heals through experience, through repeated patterns of safety, through time. She might test you, not out of immaturity, but out of necessity. She'll bring up topics casually to see how you react. She'll tell you a small truth to see if you can hold it without judgment. She's not looking for perfection, but she is looking for steadiness, emotional steadiness, spiritual steadiness, a kind of presence that doesn't shift every time the wind changes. If she senses that you carry peace, not just talk about it, something inside her begins to loosen. The layers begin to peel back slowly and subtly, not with dramatic declarations, but with little moments of trust. Even in her silence, there's a whisper of hope. Hope that maybe this time it's different. That maybe this time she can lay down her sword and not fear being left unguarded. But she won't rush into that. Because trust to her is not a gift. It's a response. It's a reflection of how deeply she believes you see her, not just what you want from her. And until she sees that your interest isn't rooted in convenience or charm, she will continue to lead with confidence, protecting what's still healing underneath. Not because she's hardened, but because she's healing. Not because she's cold, but because she's cautious. She hides her fear of being too much. It's a fear shaped not by her nature, but by her experiences. Somewhere along the way, she learned that being expressive could be seen as excessive, that showing emotion might be labeled dramatic, that having an opinion could be called argumentative. And so she began to shrink herself in subtle ways, not because she lacked confidence, but because she learned that fullness often made others uncomfortable. She internalized the idea that to be accepted, she must be smaller, not physically, but emotionally, mentally, even spiritually. So she curates her presence, giving you the version of herself she thinks you can handle, not the one that actually exists in her heart. It shows in the way she hesitates before speaking too passionately, in the way she second guesses whether to send a long message or keep it short, in the way she checks your mood before sharing her excitement or frustration. She wants to be received, not just heard. She wants to be celebrated, not just tolerated. But because she's been told, directly or indirectly, that she's too much, she's learned to dim her light when she senses discomfort. And yet, that light is still burning beneath the surface. It's in her laugh, her insight, her imagination. She doesn't want to lose it, but she's afraid that if she reveals too much of it, she'll once again be labeled as difficult, needy, or overwhelming. She doesn't want to compete with a man's ego. She wants to complement his vision. But she needs to know that her voice won't be seen as a threat, that her sensitivity isn't a weakness, that her strong presence isn't intimidating to a man who is secure in his identity. She's not trying to dominate the room. She just wants to feel like she belongs in it. There's a difference between being loud and being alive. And she is alive in every way, in thought, in emotion, in purpose. She carries a depth that doesn't fit into shallow spaces. And when a man can't handle that depth, she starts to filter herself through the lens of what's acceptable rather than what's authentic. She wants to know that she can feel deeply without being dismissed, that she can ask bold questions without being mocked, that her standards won't be seen as arrogance, but as awareness. She's not trying to be everything. She just wants to be herself, fully and freely. But when past experiences have taught her that love requires silence, she becomes fluent in pretending that she's okay with being overlooked, pretending that her needs are negotiable, pretending that she's satisfied with surface-level connections when her soul was built for depth. You may never hear her say she's afraid of being too much, because admitting that would require vulnerability. And vulnerability has not always been met with gentleness. So she'll say things like, "It's fine," or "Don't worry about it," even when her heart is full of unspoken thoughts. She'll smile politely while her spirit is begging to be understood. She'll give you measured affection when she really wants to pour out oceans of it. But behind it all is the quiet fear that if she gives too much of herself, you'll start to pull away, that you'll retreat, shut down, or worse, disappear. So she tests the waters, showing you glimpses of her fullness to see how you respond. And if she sees that you can hold her passion without panic, that you can sit with her intensity without needing to fix or silence it, she slowly starts to relax. Not because she's finally becoming someone else, but because she's finally allowed to be herself. Because her fear of being too much was never about ego, it was always about safety. And until she knows she's safe, she'll continue to edit herself, one sentence, one emotion, one dream at a time. She hides her submission behind questions, not because she's rebellious, but because submission is sacred to her. It's not something she gives lightly, and certainly not something she gives to a man who doesn't carry vision. She asks questions because she's trying to feel out the boundaries of your leadership. She's not interrogating you to challenge your authority. She's trying to discern the depth of your foundation, because submission for her is not about control. It's about trust. And she cannot trust a man who does not know where he is going. So when she asks about your goals, your plans, your intentions, she's not looking for perfect answers. She's listening for alignment, for clarity, for purpose that extends beyond the moment. She's trying to see if your ambition is fueled by character or ego. She knows what it's like to follow someone who looks strong but is emotionally unstable. She knows how it feels to support someone whose decisions are inconsistent, reactionary, or rooted in insecurity. So now she examines every word, every decision, every silence, not because she wants to argue, but because she's analyzing whether her spirit can rest under your direction. She knows that submission is not about silence, it's about safety. And until she feels safe, she will keep asking, observing, testing. She asks how you deal with conflict, how you view commitment, how you handle pressure, because she knows that real leadership shows up when things go wrong, not when everything is smooth. She knows that titles don't make a man a leader. Temperament does, integrity does, discipline does. She's not asking you to be perfect, she's asking you to be prepared. She's asking whether your leadership is built on personal responsibility or passive expectations, because she's seen men who want to be the head of a relationship without being the foundation. She's seen men who want submission without accountability, who want respect without consistency. So she hides her readiness to submit behind a filter of caution. She holds back, not because she wants power, but because she's trying to find out if you know what to do with hers. A woman's submission is one of the most powerful gifts she can give. It means she trusts you enough to let go, enough to follow your lead even when it's uncomfortable. But only if your leadership is led by purpose. She's not looking for control. She's looking for alignment, for unity, for a connection where she can bring her strength without having to hide it. She's not impressed by charm or potential. She's watching how you move in silence, how you speak when no one is looking, how you recover after failure. She's watching how you speak about your past, how you plan for your future, how you lead yourself before trying to lead someone else. And if she senses confusion, she'll challenge it, not because she's trying to take the lead, but because she refuses to walk into darkness just because someone told her to close her eyes and trust them. Submission is not her weakness, it's her discernment. And when she asks questions, it's her way of searching for a man whose vision is rooted in values. She wants to trust your voice. She wants to follow your direction. But first, she must see that your leadership isn't just about motion, it's about meaning. She wants to know that your decisions aren't just reactions. They're reflections of deeper conviction. And until she sees that, she will keep the weight of her submission tucked behind her words, behind her silence, behind her testing, not as a weapon, but as a form of wisdom. Because what she's holding back is not defiance, it's devotion waiting for the right direction. So, my brothers, understand this. What she hides is not meant to confuse you, but to call you higher. She is not waiting for perfection, she is waiting for presence. Not for control, but for clarity. She is not looking for a man to impress her, she's longing for a man who can truly understand her. And the moment you become rooted in purpose, grounded in vision, and led by principle, the very things she hides will no longer feel like mysteries. They'll become mirrors, reflecting the depth of the man you've chosen to become. Because when a man rises in maturity, a woman rises in trust. And that's when real connection begins.